moments in history that are such that if they were to play out in a different way, history could have looked either different or certain key moments would have taken place years later. The 1st of December 1955 could be considered a moment like that, because on that day, a 42-year-old woman simply said no. Welcome once again to Lessons from the Past Heavily Romanticized History, the show in which we delve into inspiring people from the past in order to hopefully derive lessons from their stories. Lessons we can use ourselves in our everyday life, lessons that help us and our communities to grow. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment. I'd love to know what the biggest lesson is you've learned from this video. Thank you so much in advance. Born on the 4th of February 1913 in Tuskegee, Alabama, Rosa Parks witnessed segregation at its fullest extent from a very young age. Imagine segregated bathrooms, segregated parks, even bus seats were segregated, everything was segregated by race. Rosa Parks, for most of her life, worked as a seamstress. However, having witnessed this injustice of segregation all of her life, she became a secretary for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in Montgomery, a civil rights group, and became active within the civil rights movement. The town of Tuskegee, by the way, where Rosa Parks was born, is infamous for the unethical syphilis study, an honestly disgusting study that went on from 1932 until 1972, in which 600 Afro-Americans weren't informed about their illness to see the effects of syphilis on African Americans. On the 1st of December 1955, Rosa Parks took the bus home and supposedly sat in the white section, a section designated for white people, which I am repeating because it sounds so weird. Now, one of the issues was that the boundary between the white and black sections weren't well defined, and Rosa Parks sat in this boundary area. When the white section got full and a white man came in, it was demanded of Rosa Parks that she would sit in the black section of the bus, at the back, as was obligatory by law in Alabama at the time. Rosa Parks said no, she wasn't going to give up her seat for a white man. This resulted in her getting a fine of $14 total, and when she refused to pay up, she was brought to justice for disruptance of public order, was found guilty, and was ordered to pay the fine. Because of her action, she was fired from her job and moved to Detroit. When Martin Luther King got wind of this action, through flyers made by Joanne Robinson, who made 50,000 of these during the nighttime by herself, he organized a peaceful protest in the form of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. As the flyer called for, Afro-Americans would not use any public transport. This led to many economic issues. It also led to a carpooling system, in which African Americans would use their cars to bring others to work. The city of Montgomery responded by calling upon insurance companies not to cover costs of cars owned by people who were using their cars for carpooling. That's how fond they were of their racist segregation. Others walked, cycled, or even rode donkeys to work. For 13 months, Afro-Americans in the city of Montgomery would not take public transport. As a reaction, many whites became members of the White Citizens Council, an organization that, like the KKK, sometimes would resort to violence. The homes of civil rights activists Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy were burned down by this group, and other boycotters were beaten up by members of the group. When 156 protesters were arrested for breaking a 1921 law for allegedly hindering a bus, Martin Luther King was one of the people arrested and was ordered to pay a $500 fine or 386 days of forced labor. This incident caused the Montgomery bus protest to gain national attention, a story of which I cannot fail but see the irony of. On June 5, 1956, the court ruled in the case of Browder versus Gill that Alabama's bus segregation laws were unconstitutional. The state appealed the decision, and the boycott continued. As the case moved to the U.S. Supreme Court, the Supreme Court upheld the court's initial decision on the 13th of November 1956. The Montgomery bus boycott officially ended on December 20th, 1956. Rosa Parks became the first woman in the U.S. to ever be laid in the Greater Grace Temple Church after her passing in 2005. This place is usually only intended for presidents and some war heroes. Making this video, I realized that it was not only Rosa Parks who was so brave not to give up her seat. In fact, she wasn't the first one to do so either. I do, however, admire Rosa Parks because of both her bravery and her sense of duty to her community by not fawning in the face of injustice, however intimidating that face may be. But we cannot forget to give credit to the many Afro-Americans, along with some white people, that did everything they could to stop this racist nonsense by refusing to take public transport. I have to say that making this video was kind of hard. I myself am a person of color, and although I am not living in the US, nor am I from the US, I have always had a soft spot for 20th century American history, and although I was very much aware of how bad segregation was in the US during the Jim Crow and segregation era, every time I am doing something that involves me doing research about it, I get nauseous. I am going to state the obvious, but please, never again. But it is not all misery. I mean, look at where we are now in comparison to back then. We still have a long road ahead. But I think we can all learn from the US civil rights movement is that its strive for justice is a story of hope and resilience. In general, as a society, we should keep hope and never give up fighting against injustice when we see it happening before us. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and also leave a comment. Thank you so much in advance. Again, if you leave a comment, please let me know what the biggest lesson is you've learned today from this video.